Let's get after it. There you go.
After a stellar high school career, you end up choosing Auburn as your college commitment. Talk about your decision to go to Auburn.
So I kind of, both of my parents taught at my high school, and my dad was my coach. My dad taught at my high school, and my dad was my dad. So I felt that me going away would give me some maturity to kind of, learn to fend for myself kind of mentality. So I was kind of interested in looking at a school that's far away. And I was like, okay, where's the best conference? The SEC, hands down. So, and then in addition to that, I made the World Junior team. I was actually made the finals in 200 meters for the United States. And when I made that USA team, Harvey Glantz was the head coach of the World Junior team. And Harvey Glantz was also an Olympic gold medalist, Auburn alumni, Auburn head coach, and he kind of took me under his wing, and I really admired him as a person, as a coach, and as, a motivator and leader. So because of that, I decided that it was in my best interest to, choose Auburn over, USC, UCLA, Arizona State, and all, the University of Texas, all those other schools, Stanford, which I all got, offers from, University of North Carolina, everywhere. So I chose to go to Auburn. I wanted to go to a school that was in the SEC, that had a solid program, and then also had a coach that would, be there for me and show that support. So that was nice. So that's what happened. Chose Auburn because of that.
I think just looking back at it, it was a little bit of a shock. I'm just looking at let's say being a track fan back then, and how big you were at the time. UCLA, I think, was still coming off national championships. John Smith was still the coach there. USC was coming back. So, I think it was a little bit of shock because I didn't recall anyone ever going to Auburn from California, so you were like a trendsetter and trailblazer. But I think it was shocking to see you leave the West Coast or not be at UCLA or USC.
Right. A lot of people were shocked, and a lot of them don't understand that. Also, my roommate at Auburn was Aaron Richburg.
Oh, wow.
And, Aaron Richburg was probably the only person to ever beat Granville. He probably is, actually. He is the only person.
we talked about that in the Granville interview. Huge part about him and Aaron Richburg. Wow. Yeah, that's right. Because Aaron went there.
Yes, and we're roommates. And also Robbie Wayhall, he was a pole vaulter and decathlete from Bakersfield. And I've known Robbie since I was little through club track. So he also went to Auburn. I actually spent some time with Robbie and his family a few weeks ago when we went out there for spring break for my kids. His sons took second in the state in the javelin, and he's a sophomore in high school. So, so he's still there in Auburn, but it was a few other Californians going there. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's some people from home that could, relate to the California mentality. And it just, I didn't feel the Pac-10 at the time. They didn't really have the competitiveness that I wanted. I wouldn't have been challenged competitively. Even exception of Otto Bolden, which he was graduating, and Gentry Bradley.
Yeah.
If you take those two guys out the way, even if you look at the Pac-10 times when I was involved in track and field, in collegiate track and field, none of those guys in the Pac-10 could have touched me with a 10-foot pole. So it was a good decision because it was a lack of competitiveness in the 100 and 200 meters in the Pac-10. But the SEC, I had horses there. You had some serious sprinters. I had to deal with John Capels and the Kobe Millers and, the Tim Hardens.
Yeah. I was going to say, talk about Auburn. I think even for the SEC, at least outside looking in, Harvey Glantz, obviously amazing coach, Olympian,
Oh, yeah.
been on national teams. But Auburn was kind of, I guess I would say, maybe a sleeper program because Arkansas was on top then, and Tennessee and Kentucky with Tim Harden. So I think that's why I was more like Auburn. Wow.
Right.
Did you look at Arkansas or Florida or any of those other SEC
Well,
powerhouses?
I didn't just look at the track program. I looked at the academic program. So me coming from an educator family background, I was more concerned about the education on top of the program. So that was why the only school academically that's comparable to Auburn was Vanderbilt in the SEC, and I wasn't going to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I said, you know what, I can't go wrong having an Olympian coach me. And also I knew that Mel Rosen was there, who was the 1992 Olympic head coach. So I got Harvey Glantz, I got Mel Rosen, and a lot of history with as far as in that sport. They've produced great athletes. So I said, this is a good fit. So that's why I chose Auburn. My parents, they weren't too happy about that because I went away, but I felt it was a good chance, for my maturity, the SEC conference, and also academically, and having Harvey Glantz and Mel Rosen as my mentors. So it was great. Mainly Harvey Glantz, right?
Yeah.
But it was interesting going to the South versus California. It was a big culture shock for me. And a lot of people don't realize that a few weeks on campus when I was at Auburn, I got ran over by a truck with gun racks in the window. This plowed me over, called me the N-word. I hit the front windshield of the truck, flipped over the truck. I ended up being in the hospital, had all types of, liver and spleen bruising. So I was pretty banged up. And shockingly, I don't know how I did it, but I still managed to get have a 3.7 GPA that semester. And also I was able to make the finals at the NCAA championship. And I was banged up as a freshman. So, and then my sophomore year is when I won NCAA's indoors. So it was a very difficult change from California to the South, being called that N-word and being ran over by a truck, to hearing about, Klan rallies where they're burning crosses and being able to visually see that, and the big roaches that were flying around campus because of the South, which I don't do bugs. And then being away from home, by myself. Thankfully, I had Aaron as my roommate because, my oldest son, that's his godfather, and he's named after him, his middle name, who, my oldest son who's at Azusa Pacific on a track scholarship. So that kind of, that brotherly camaraderie was kind of built after that because, we had us each other from the West Coast. The Southern mentality is completely different. And even that's when I seen a lot of segregation, and it blew my mind once I got to really live in that environment of how segregated the South was. There was no Latinos, there's no Asians, and it was black and there was white, and they don't mix. The blacks and the whites don't really hang around each other. And then it got to a point where in the black community, being a certain color, you kind of get shunned too. It's like, I'm mixed, but it got to a point where, oh, you're part white, but you're not white enough to hang with the whites. And oh, you're not black enough to hang with the blacks because your skin color's light. So it's kind of like this light-skinned racism where you're kind of stuck in the middle of this floating class where you're kind of got to prove yourself. So it was very interesting experience that I had to deal with, but I overcame that and had good grades, solid grades, and I ran quite well under Harvey. Made that year I made the World University team and ended up getting a gold medal that year. I think it was Jonathan Carter, Vince Henderson, and Tony McCall were on that relay with him. So that was kind of fun to represent America and compete. So after getting banged up and the racism and the culture shock and the segregation and the environment, the humidity, the bugs, the mosquitoes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, in 1997, you win the indoor championships in the 55 meters, and you made 3 USA teams and got a gold in the World University Games in 1997.
There, I'm afraid I jinxed him from the best of luck to the worst of luck in lane 4.
He's a class act, though, Badelli Thompson. 3.9 grade average with a double major. World-class athlete.
Bryan Howard, lane 3 from Auburn, breaks the blocks first, stretches out in the lead, and breaks the tape first. It's the race for second and third, Larry, but we're going to have to look at the photo to determine. But Bryan Howard, without Thompson in that field, appears to have won the men's 55.
Adrian, definitely a breakthrough for Howard. He showed tremendous promise in California high school competition, set a 50-yard, let me correct myself, a 50-meter indoor world record as a high schooler. And Harvey Glantz, the Olympic gold medalist on the relay, the head coach down at Auburn, now has a chance to get a great talent, and he's developing and bringing this young man along very well. Bryan Howard gets out to a very fine start and slowly but surely increases his lead. But this is a breakthrough moment for this young man as he tries to become a truly world-class sprinter.
How much more did that having those credentials and that accolades help give you respect towards your name as an athlete and a black one in the South?
It solidified my name because there's a lot of athletes that after high school, they didn't do much. They were superstars in high school. They didn't make that transition to the next level. Collegiately, they came to the college track and field world, and they were just, their names were non-existent. They were just that high school phenom, and that's it. So to be able to make that transition from being the high school phenom to actually now being an NCAA champion and making USA teams to being rated in the world, I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm a force to be reckoned with. I'm legit. Let's make this happen. So it was a nice feeling to know that my hard work is starting to pay off.
Yeah, that 55 meters, I think that was an incredible field. Badelli Thompson and that. I watched the race. You won by one 100th of a second, or
yes, yeah.
And that was back then when they didn't. That was back then when they didn't have the indoor facilities they have now. So nowadays they run the 60 meters. Back then they ran the 55, and I think like the NCAA meet was like at the RCA Dome, right?
It was a track that I believe it's similar to Sunkiss. It's a track that they lay down and they remove it.
Yeah, it was 200-meter track, and they put in the middle of the football field, and they ran. Yeah,
Yes.
It was that people don't know. They you guys were running in a big stadium, and it was it was. But yeah, that was a very competitive field. I remember looking at it like, look at the guys in this race.
Oh yeah, there's I think even Allen Rawson was in there. He's an NFL player in the future.
Yeah,
So
Notre Dame.
oh yeah, and then in that race, Percival Spencer from Texas Christian, who took second place, and there's a story behind that later on.
Yeah,
So so it was a solid field for sure, and I was just happy to be an NCAA champion as a sophomore in college, especially considering what I went through my freshman year in college was very difficult.
Can you tell more about that?
I was just going to add with with how well you did in the 50 indoors high school, that really had to solidify you. You had that national record, so to come in and the collegiate ranks and be able to win an NCAA title in the 55 meters made it say, yeah, this guy is for real. He's just not a high school superstar.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the nice thing that high school national record is still standing. So that's one of the oldest standing high school national records, and it's a nice feeling to say that I am the fastest high schooler ever in American history. Yeah. That's it's sinking in now. I didn't really think about it then, but now I'm like, oh wait a minute, I'm the fastest ever at that distance in American history to this day, and that was 24 years ago, and it's still there, and it's still way out of range. So it was an honor, definitely an honor.
So you were mentioning about that backstory just a couple minutes ago.
As far as Percival Spencer?
Yeah.
So when I was at Auburn, Harvey Glantz pulled me to the side and he said, "Son, I want to talk to you about something." He's like, I'm considering leaving Auburn. And I was just like, oh no. This is going to be interesting. So he left to go to Alabama, and I understand why. I mean, the way they set him up versus at Auburn, they treated him like he was royalty, which he is royalty. And I believe they tripled his salary and set him up with amazing housing and a nice car to drive. When he was my coach, his work car that Auburn gave him was a Ford Tempo, and it was a cream color Ford Tempo. And then from there, he's driving a Q45 when he's at Alabama. So a big change in this, the whole treatment of, you know, the way they rolled out the carpet. I was shocked. A lot of people that understand athletics, when you go from Auburn to Alabama, that's like going from UCLA to USC.
Yeah.
But it's even more, the competitiveness of those two schools is more in depth in the South. So it's a whole different level of competitiveness. So to be an Olympic gold medalist, Auburn alumni, Auburn head coach, to go to Alabama, they rolled out the red carpet for him. So I was very supportive of him leaving because I wanted what's best for Harvey. And I said, hey, you should go. I mean, this is non-comparison. And I said, you know, I don't want to stick around and wait to see what coach they're going to bring in. I'm not willing to take that chance. So I went to the athletic director and said, I want to release. I'm leaving Auburn. And they said, that's fine. Due to the circumstances, your coach leaving, we're going to release you under one circumstance. We're not releasing you to go to Alabama.
Yeah.
So they agreed to release me to any school in the country except Alabama. So that was tough. So I decided to sit out a semester. I went back home to California. Thankfully, I was taking 18 to 21 units a semester. So I was way ahead of my peers academically. So I could afford to sit out because I was still going to graduate in 3 years with my bachelor's degree. So I knew that. So I went home and I started taking recruiting trips again and looking at different schools, looking at Ohio State, looked at Texas Christian, Florida, USC, UCLA, Arizona State, Arizona. Those are the schools I kind of looked at again. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Texas Christian University because it has a 12-to-1 student to instructor ratio. So I'm not a number, I'm actually a human being. I get that personalized attention from my instructors. The school is rated extremely high academically from all aspects. It's a small private school. It's a more intimate environment. And the fact that when I won NCAAs, the person that took second place was Percival Spencer. So I'm like, hey, I get to train with the person that almost took my NCAA title away from me. This is great. And I said, between the two of us, we'd make a hell of a relay. If we could get some others that, we're going to be solid, which worked out great because Jermaine Hollowell, who was supposed to go to Auburn also, with Kobe Miller was going to Auburn and myself, we were all supposed to go to Auburn, which who knows what could happen if we all would have been there together too. He ended up going to TCU. So that was kind of a nice situation. We were actually roommates when we were at TCU, Jermaine Hollowell. And, that was the relay ended up setting NCAA record, the four of us. So that's why after sitting out, I chose Texas Christian University because of the academics, the student to instructor ratio in the classroom, and the fact that Percival Spencer was second place when I won nationals and he was there. So I was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, that just to go back on the Auburn thing, that was a huge deal, like you said, for Harvey Glance to go from Auburn to Alabama. It was like, wow, looking at it on the side. Now I look at it like, Auburn, why didn't you just take care of them? Because Auburn doesn't want to lose anyone to Alabama. So for Alabama to take Auburn's coach, that's a major coup. That's like a slap in the face. That's probably one reason why they did it, man. We're gonna go over there and steal Auburn coach, and we're gonna hate us more. So you had that issue. But then, yeah, you went to TCU and you guys broke the national record in the relay. And I always remember the biggest deal was you guys ran super fast at the Texas relays and you guys were in the cover of Track and Field News in those uniforms. And everyone was talking about it. It was like, I forgot what it said, but TCU smoking at Texas relays. And you guys had the new futuristic uniforms and everybody was like, I want to be like TCU now.
Oh yeah. we were known for our uniforms, and we had those full length white bodysuits with the purple
Yes.
stripe on it, very flashy. And we came to put on a show. You know, we worked as a unit, and it was 2 Jamaicans and 2 Americans, and we ate together at every meet, every meal. We roomed together. We trained relay baton exchanges on a daily basis. We were like one big family, and we trusted each other to get that baton around the track. So it was kind of nice to have that team camaraderie. We still have that to this day. We still interact with one another. And I don't know how we ran that fast to break the national record, considering the environment was 55 degrees and wet and cold. If it was on a hot track on a hot sunny day, there's no way that we wouldn't have ran 37.8, and we probably still would be the NCAA record holder in the relay. But to run 38.04 in 50-degree weather in Buffalo, New York,
Yeah.
is unheard of.
Yeah, I was gonna say just some background. The NCAA meet was in Buffalo that year, and all I heard was it was cold and rainy, and everyone when they saw your time was like, "What?" Because it was freezing.
Yes.
You know, it was just a condition. I think that's the first and only time they went to Buffalo, but all you heard from people was, "Why the heck is the NCAA meet in Buffalo?"
Exactly.
You know,
Right. And LSU pushed us at that time. We had to deal with, you know, Chris Cummings and Curtis Perry. So they kept us honest all year. They challenged us at Penn Relays. They challenged us, Texas Relays. Nobody in the country could come close to us but LSU that year. So it was nice to have them push us. I believe the old NCAA record, I believe they even ran faster than the old NCAA record, which TCU also held. So it was nice. It was fun. It was a great event.
yeah, I think I even recall. I think Fresno State got 4th, and they were like 38.98, and it was like,
Yes.
whoa, like whoa. And I recall that because it was like Fresno State got 4th in that race.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a hot race. That year to get into the finals, you had to run.
Yeah.
Graduated with a bachelor's degree in speech communications and human relations from TCU, but then you leave college early to go pro and sign with HSI, which is Hudson Smith International with and Adidas and Oakley. You joined the pro circuit. Talk about your transition from college into the pro circuit.
So my transition, a lot of people don't realize I still had eligibility left collegiately. I had an indoor season left because when I set out, I didn't run indoor when I came back. So I basically had a conversation with John Smith, and the in conclusion was, the Olympic year is coming up. It's time to make some decisions, and it was time to go run for HSI. And during that time frame, I also had to go through a process of being interviewed. I had to talk to Maurice Green and John Drummond, Otto Bolden, and they had to kind of vote me into the group. So we went down that process. Initially, they always mess with you, say, we're not going to vote you in. They want to see how much did you really want to be with this group, and if you would mesh and fit in. And ultimately, they felt I was a good fit. They felt I had the talent and the mentality to come train with them. So I ended up leaving early collegiately, and I still got my degree. So I sat out a semester, and I still able to get my bachelor's in 3.5 years and have eligibility left. So all that hard work in the classroom paid off. So it was important for me to get my degree because I know that athletics is a very short time of your lifetime, and regardless of how much you love the sport, eventually it's time to move on. And when it was time to move on, I wanted to be prepared to move on so that I had something backing me, and so that I could provide for myself and my family, and have the type of lifestyle that I would like to have, and travel and see the world and expose my kids to things. So yeah, I left early, and I had a great experience underneath John Smith and Darrell Smith. Also, those two were the ones that coached me. And it was at practices, we used to put on shows. It was a very intense environment, training transitioning from college to pro. If I could rewind time, I would have stayed at Auburn. I mean, I would have stayed at Texas Christian University and finished out my last indoor season. And then I would have been in my master's program, which I would have got for free. Because right now a master's degree at TCU is like $120,000 for 2 years. So I was like, oh man, I should have just stayed and continued to train with my teammates. So, you know, you live, you learn, and all I could do is take that mistake and apply that to my children and make sure they know that, hey, if you're in a position to go straight through, do it. Don't wait. It's tough to do it later.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because we a lot of this podcast is for information for parents and student athletes. So for you to say, I got my degree in 3.5 years is big, because I coach kids now and I advise them. Nowadays, a little different. These kids I see kids now, they're graduating in 3 years, like you said, and they use their redshirt year. But these kids now will go to school, they'll go to summer school, winter session, fall, spring, they'll stack their units. And these kids now, I advise all my private clients, I say, especially the football guys, or the guys who I know, I say, listen, if you really do this right, you can get a master's degree out of this. I said, because they're going to bring you in early. You have to be there every summer with a strength and conditioning coach. I go, if you go to summer school every summer and take 2 classes and take a full load in the fall and the spring, don't just take 12 units, add an extra class, like you said, Bryan. I'm like, you can get your BA done in 3 years, and then in year 4 and 5, they're paying for a master's. I said, so this should be a business decision for you. This shouldn't just be sports. Like, I'm like, to be able to for them to put you on scholarship, have to pay you, your meal plan, stipend, and then for you to get a master's out of it, like you said, how much is that master's at TCU? 150,000.
Exactly.
You can just leverage the situation. You can leverage the situation.
Absolutely. And it's all about utilizing your skill set to get that education. And a lot of times I tell people, even the kids that I coach right now, we have a club team in Menifee here. It's a new club team. And I stress to these kids, it's tough. Track and field is tough. But if you're good at it, we could get you an education paid for and save your parents some money and save you some money, where you're walking away, graduated from university with 0 debt, and you basically got paid to make your body look better.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. You get to register classes before seniors.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to never have an issue with getting the classes you want. You get to do a little traveling, and you get to make your body look nice, which is going to carry you through life. Those muscles will always be there.
Yeah. And you compete. That's the biggest deal I tell student athletes. You learn to compete. You have teammates that are good. You have competitors that are good. I always say competing as a collegiate athlete makes you much better when you hit the professional world, because you've had to go to practice and class and travel and still do your schoolwork. And then when you get to the professional world, you're competitive, where a regular student may just have been going to class.
Oh, absolutely. You're in a whole different mind frame, and you have that edge as an athlete going into the real world, because you've been drugged up and down the track and vomiting and IVs and legs cramping in class, and you got to lift weights in the morning, then you got to go to class, and you got to get on the track at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock when it's 100 degrees. And the track, people don't realize those tracks are 130 degrees because of the surface heat. And you're training in that. And then you got to go from there to the training room to get your body worked out, of giving you aches and pains. Then from there, you got to eat. And then you got to go to another class, and you got to study, and you got to wake up the next day and do that all again. And what happens if you catch a cold? Mm-hmm. My son right now, he's taking a summer term. He's taking biology, and he caught a cold. So he has to train, go to class, and fight a cold all at the same time. Yeah. And no exceptions. It's reality. So it definitely makes you a very powerful human being, where the sky's the limit if you're an athlete in college, because the adversity you have to deal with, the stuff you have to work through, the difficulties of the levels of difficulties, it's nothing you can't do if you've been through that. Literally. I mean, I see my little kids right now. I mean, we have a girl out there. She was running through the workout crying. She was running and crying. And I said, hey, just keep up the good job. This will benefit you down the road. I know you don't see it now, but just trust in the program. This will benefit you down the road and you'll make your family proud. So she smiled and she kept fighting, kept working on the track. So it's a great sport to instill value. Right.
May 3rd, 2000, in the 4x100 relay, you are part of the 4x1 relay team that set the stadium record of the HSI with 38:17, ran with John Drummond, Otto Bolden, and Maurice Green, the world record holder in the 100 meters. Talk about what it was like setting that record.
That record, it still stands to this day. And to have the record at that stadium, that says a lot, because a lot of, monsters come through that track to train, to compete. They're actually having a big international meet that's coming up there very soon at that stadium. So it was an honor to just train with those guys, to train with the best in the world. And a lot of people don't realize we could have ran a lot faster that day. We used that meet as a workout.
Yeah.
So literally. So it was nice. It was a nice experience. We also, that same relay, we won Mount Sac, we won Penn Relays, the USA versus the world. And yeah, good times, very good times.
Nowadays, you're the owner of Sprint Medical Corporation. Talk more about what it's like doing Sprint Medical Corporation.
So as you can see right here.
There you go. Yep.
There
you go.
Sprint
Plug
Medical.
it. Plug it, Bryan.
Yeah. So I'm a sprinter. So when it came down to developing Sprint Medical, it was a great name to come up with. We're a medical staffing agency where we staff laboratories with employees. And I was actually formerly the director of sales for LexisNexis, lawyers.com, attorneys.com. We sold, law firm marketing and treatises and codes and jury instructions and investigative tools to lawyers. So for the past 20 years, I've only worked with lawyers and doctors. So that's kind of, a nice industry to be in. And, we've weathered the storm and we've been here. We have a national presence and, we're continuing to staff laboratories with employees and grow the business. So a lot of the reason why I got into the medical vertical, I had a good friend of mine, Casey Crawford, that owned a laboratory that brought me into the business. And I was very appreciative of that. And it intrigued me because with the drug abuse issues we see in sports, I wanted to be a part of that. I want to be a part of keeping people clean and holding people accountable for their actions. So I got involved with the urine drug testing world, and that's kind of how Sprint Medical started, was in that realm. I still do that to this day. I sit on the board of, multiple labs as executive members of their staff to help, manage their employees and grow the business in the world of toxicology, infectious disease, COVID testing, chemistry testing, pharmacogenomics, and cancer genetics. The cancer genetics is basically a saliva swab, and I could tell you based off your biomarkers what kind of cancer you're going to get based off your DNA. Our cancer markers are in our body right now. It's 100% accurate, where we could tell you exactly, hey, based off your DNA, you're going to get liver cancer, you're going to get brain cancer, you're going to get lung cancer. So it helps the medical world determine the difference in, if you get cancer, did you get it environmentally or did you get it genetically? So say you take this test and you're able to pinpoint that you're going to get liver cancer. Well, now you know that you are, so you could be proactive and catch the cancer in stage 1 versus finding out in stage 4. So it helps us save lives, one life at a time, which is nice. So you have this person that is monitoring it. So when stage 1 hits, they're already aware of it because they had this genetic test done and they know they're going to get liver cancer, and now they could fight it and live life. And it also saves the medical industry a ton of money by not having to put you through all this process and hospice and medical, pharmacy cost and all this stuff. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to be involved in the medical vertical and holding people accountable for, not doing the drugs and saving lives via cancer genetics, stopping the spread of infectious diseases, COVID testing. I mean, it may be where you have a patient that feels ill but tests negative for COVID. Well, they have something, and they have something that could potentially be an outbreak and spread. And we need to know exactly what they have. If they have influenza, we could tell you that just by swabbing the nasal cavity. 35 different pathogens. So it's been an honor. It's been fun. It's been really fun to just be in this industry and help save lives and help people stay clean and hold people accountable that are not clean. We do a lot of drug testing for drug treatment centers from Hawaii to Florida to Minnesota to Southern California to all over the place. So it's a passion for me. It really is. So, my kids know about it. I got an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, and I have a 20-year-old. And my wife, I've been my wife for 17 years, been married for 15 years. It's been great.
You also coach sprints and hurdles for the Menifee Mustangs. Talk more about what it's like coaching youth athletes and how you built your program. You said you started out with 10 athletes, now you have 65.
Right. Yes. I mean, I was a big part of the Moreno Valley Rockets initially and helping, with that program. I was actually looking forward to potentially taking over the program completely from Al, the owner of the Rockets, because, Al's getting up in age and I wanted to, help him live out his dream. But, due to logistics, it made it impossible via location to commute on a daily basis to practice. It would have been very, very taxing on, my body and my mental to do that. So I started searching around and, ended up meeting a gal that started the Menifee Mustangs, and we've been growing the program and, quite well. And I coached the hurdles and I coached the sprints, and we're a very diverse program. We have javelin throwers, we have shot putters, we have hurdlers, we have long jumpers, and we have discus throwers, we got sprinters, we have milers, we have kids from age 4 to age 18 we're willing to coach. So it taught me discipline and patience, because at first I was telling my wife, I was like, oh my God, this is kind of tough. When you have 15 sprinters and you have to tell a 4-year-old how to understand the drive phase, how are you going to get that across to a 4-year-old, how to explain to a 4-year-old what are wickets, what is dorsiflexing, what's an acceleration phase, what's a maintenance phase, what's arm placement, what's head placement, what's knee placement. So I had to be creative on coaching these kids to figure that out. So it's been very interesting to say the least. And we've had quite a bit of success. And years down the road, we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, our staff alone, from Coach Charles to Coach Nevada and Coach Keish, who is also a track athlete. Coach Keish was a track athlete who's ex-military. Coach Nevada was an NCAA All-American, NCAA champion, 800-meter runner. We have her. We have Coach Charles, who also trains pro fighters for a living. Mm-hmm. And he has his PhD in biomechanics, so he understands the body's functions. So with all the staff we have, and being able to give back to the community, something they didn't have a track program here. It's been huge. And then to see our athletes, the progression, even the athletes that don't run track, that are out there, that are soccer players, that just want to get faster for their sport, mm-hmm. or the softball player that just wants to get faster for their sport, or the obese child that may have a genetic mutation where they have a tendency to be more obese than the average kid, to see them lean out and it build their self-confidence, and to see them actually become real athletes. And at first you didn't think they were going to be an athlete. It's very rewarding to see that happen. And also myself, it's helped me. I'm out there working with them, and I'm getting fit. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should go compete in the masters level, have another run at this.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I tell people since I started going private, about 10 years ago, I said, I've become a much better coach than I was even as a collegiate coach. I said, because when you get a 4 or 5-year-old client, you just said it. I got to try to teach this kid the dry phase and this and this. Like, you really got to coach that kid. Like, you have to,
Yes.
which makes it much easier to coach the elite kid, because
Oh, yeah.
like when you're coaching a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, or just some kids who really don't know what they're doing and their parent, and you got to get them better. You got to coach. You got to really think. It's not like, oh, these kids are all Americans. They're good. Hey, just show up and go run fast. You have to develop those kids, and it makes you, like I said, it's made me a much better coach for my elite people working with you. And you got like 10 of them, 15. Like, how I got this 4-year-old, I got this 8-year-old, I got this 12-year-old. You got to tell all of them different things.
Right. It is. It's very interesting. And just like today, I'm gonna, we're doing a private session. Today is block starts, and I'm going to probably have 15 kids out there, and I'm going to spend 3 hours with them, teaching them how to use the blocks and how to set the blocks and how to have angles where your arms are supposed to be, where your head is supposed to be in the blocks, where your feet are supposed to be, how to set up blocks at a track meet. Because when you start getting close to regionals, they don't allow coaches on the track. I can't set their blocks for them. They have to, this 5-year-old needs to be able to carry the blocks themselves and set the blocks up. It teaches, problem solving, and it's also in a stressful environment. So you're telling me this 5-year-old is going to carry the blocks across the track, set his marks, set his setting, get a practice start. I mean, those are life skills that you're developing at a young age that you're going to carry for life. And also, I had a friend of mine say, "Wow, you're giving away all your pearls to these your kids' competitors who are on their team, because they get to get your coaching, and your kids get to get your coaching. You're giving away all your pearls that you've gotten from your dad, who's coached tons of elite athletes, including Tyree Washington and Pat Johnson. My dad got his master's degree from Pepperdine and ran track for Pepperdine, to Harvey Glantz, to Mel Rosing, to Monty Stratton at TCU, to John Smith, to Darrell Smith, all these great coaches that I was underneath. I'm giving these pearls away to these kids that are competing against my kids. And I say, the bottom line is, if I can make my kids' competitors better, then it's going to keep my kids honest and in check and make my kids better. So I don't mind helping anybody get great. And these are all my kids, as far as I look at it. I want everybody to succeed. And if I can help any kid out here develop themselves to the point that it helps them avoid being suicidal, it helps them build their confidence, it helps them be a more productive citizen in society, it helps them get a scholarship, and they may be the first college graduate in their family. If I could be a part of that to help grow that and help a kid shine and smile and see a kid be able to use his abilities to get a scholarship when his family doesn't have the resources to pay for that, or even the resources to understand how to get financial aid. I mean, if I could do that, that's the least I could do while I'm here on earth, is to help people grow. So
well said. Well said.
You have 3 sons, ages 8, 10, and 20. Your oldest is on a track scholarship at Azusa Pacific University. He's a 400-meter hurler who has met the national championship standards, but you pushed your kid to actually do Division II over Division I. You said Division I has 100 studs, but Division II has about 10 studs. So just talk more about the overall decision, why you pushed your son to play Division II as a former Division I top 25 program SEC athlete.
Right. So I look at it this way. I was, an 18-time All-American, 2-time NCAA champion, SEC champion, school record holder, world junior record holder. I looked at it this way. If I would have went to a Division II school, that school would have had a statue of me in the front of the school, a permanent statue. So too many kids want to go to Division I and not realizing that there's 100 Mustangs, 100 Stallions in Division I. You could not even make it to NCAA Division I championship as a 400-meter guy. You're not even going to go to nationals. You're not good enough. But the time that you ran would have got you to the finals of the Division II national championships. You may not make the finals for Division I, but the time that you ran by not being a finalist and getting scolded by your coach, you would have been a Division II national champion. So a national title is a national title. So instead of diluting, instead of having too many horses in Division I, well, why don't you go over here and go to Division II and have a little bit better success and more shining? Because a lot of these Division I coaches, if you get injured, they're going to throw you to the wolves and push you to the side and move on to the next greatest athlete. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. So I'm a big fan of people looking at different divisions. It's not all about Division I. It's about getting your education. And if a Division II or Division III or an NAIA school does that for you, maybe you should consider doing that instead of going out there and wanting to be D1. There's a ton of athletes that were Division II athletes that became Olympic champions, that became great athletes. You have Bryan Clay, Olympic gold medalist in the decathlon. He went to Zulu Pacific University. You got the Zinwa brothers from the 90s. They went to Zulu Pacific, and they have great coaching right now in this Division II. And I felt it was a great move for him to do that because he's going to finish with his master's degree in school psychology. So, I mean, it's not about, oh, I want to go D1. It's about going to a school that has the program that you want to be in so that you could succeed in life as an adult. And they happen to have one of the best school psychology programs in the state, and he's going to be graduating and will have his master's degree at age 23 with no debt and nothing but the future to look ahead of himself. So he's going to be in his mid-20s. Between his private consulting and being a school psychologist, he can make $300,000 a year with the summers off at age 24 years old. Where are you going to find that at? You know how much cortisol, it's going to decrease his overall cortisol levels, the success he's going to have career-wise, the financial advantage he's going to have and compared to his peers. It's huge. So I think it's a great move for a lot of people to consider that. Even people that are D1 right now, the people that are maybe an alternate on a relay, but you could be an NCAA champion in Division II. Maybe you should consider transferring so you could shine a little bit. Maybe even a D2 athlete, maybe you shouldn't be D2. Maybe you should go NAIA or D3 and have a better chance to be a national champion. So that's why we chose Zulu Pacific along with the great coaching. I just think it's important for all athletes to think about after the sport and not just think about, oh, I want this glory of, I went to this D1 school. It doesn't matter. When it comes down to getting hired, it's all about your skill set and your ability to interview and your resources. So I'm big on it.
I'm a proponent on it. I coach D2. And as I was coaching, I learned a lot more about Division III. I'm a big fan of Division III. And the random person looks down on it, D2 and D3. But I'm going to tell you this, having coached Division I, having coached Division II, there's a lot of Division I athletes that have no business being Division I. There's a lot of Division I athletes who will never travel. They'll never go to their conference meet. They'll never go to nationals. And if they want to have an overall better athletic experience, you can be very competitive and nationally ranked at the Division II or Division III level. The staff do a lot better job developing. Like you just said, Bryan, you're a lot more valuable. If you're alternate on a relay, you could go to a school and be, a star at a relay. And then here's the deal, especially with track and field. I always tell people a time is a time. When I was at Cal LA, one of my sprinters ran 20:30, and he made the Olympic trial, second final. So it didn't matter. I think he was one of the top 10 collegiate sprinters, that year. Where I had a high jumper that jumped 7.5. You get it? So
right.
It's in track and field. I tell people, hey, all my guys were really good. They went to USA championships and they went to
exactly.
Juniors.
Yeah, you gotta look at all these details. You gotta look at like Kempa, these Division II athletes that went to, like Antonio Pettigrew, Jerome Young,
yeah,
Mickey
George
Bryan.
Williams Adams State had great program. George Williams at St. Augustine's, you know, he had a bunch of guys make Olympic teams like Rashawn Jackson and Pettigrew.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
he would tell me, hey, Chris, we're going to parent relays and we're going to blast these D1 schools and win the championship of Americas. And they would. You'd be seeing St. Augustine went.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, you got Jaworski Odom in the hurdles, just destroying guys. And he was good enough to be Division I NCAA champion. He chose D2 be under a great coach and did great and ran pro.
Yeah. So just they're excellent options for people, and I'm glad the parents and student athletes who might see this video can hear that from you.
Oh, it's important. It's a lot of, it's not talked about enough. Everybody, oh, I want to go D1. No, you want to get your education, because athletics, I don't care, even if you're in the NFL, it's very short-lived. If you look at an NFL salary, the average NFL salary, when you take taxes out of that and agent fees and the abuse your body goes through, you're going to have to get a job. They all have to get jobs, exception of a few. So, you know, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's my advice for all athletes.
Well, Bryan Howard, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed hearing your story. You've had a wonderful storied career as a player, and now you've turned to coach. You're a very wonderful scholar athlete. You're an exemplary student athlete in high school and college. You're a tremendous in the medical field, and a tremendous coach and a tremendous teacher. Really heard good things about you from Coach Chris. So, Bryan Howard, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks,
Thank you. Thank you for your time. All right, Chris. You guys
Talk
take
to you
care.
soon. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.